It all started innocently enough. It was my girlfriend's birthday last weekend, and she wanted to celebrate in style. She invited me and a bunch of her close friends to join her for a night out on the town. We were all excited this was going to be one of those memorable nights filled with laughter, good drinks, and dancing until the early hours. At least that's what we all thought. The evening began like any other birthday celebration. We met up at a cozy little bar downtown, the kind of place where the bartenders know how to mix a proper cocktail and the ambience makes you feel right at home. Everyone was in high spirits, and the night was off to a fantastic start. We spent the first hour or so catching up, cracking jokes, and toasting to another year of my girlfriend's life. As the night progressed, we decided to switch things up and head to a livelier spot. We hopped from bar to bar, each one with its own unique vibe. By the time we made it to the third or fourth place, we were all a little tipsy but still having a great time. The drinks were flowing, the music was loud, and the energy was contagious. Eventually, someone suggested that we hit a club to dance the night away. It sounded like a great idea after all. What's a birthday celebration without a little dancing? So we all piled into a couple of cabs and made our way to one of the more popular clubs in the city. The kind of place with flashing lights, a packed dance floor, and a DJ who knew how to keep the crowd moving. When we arrived, we were greeted by the thumping bass of the music and the sight of people dancing like there was no tomorrow. We quickly found a spot to set up camp and ordered a round of drinks. Everyone was in high spirits, ready to dance and enjoy the night to the fullest. That's when things started to take a turn. My girlfriend's best friend, let's call her Sarah, has been in a relationship with her boyfriend Mark for about 3 years. I've met Mark a couple of times at various gatherings, and he's always come across as a decent guy, kind, respectful, and clearly in love with Sarah. They seemed like a solid couple, the kind you look at and think they're going to make it. But as the night went on, Sarah's behavior began to change. At first, it was subtle, just a little more flirtatious than usual, dancing a bit too close to some of the guys in the club. I didn't think much of it at the time, maybe she was just enjoying herself and getting into the groove of the night. But then, things escalated. I was on the dance floor with my girlfriend when I noticed Sarah dancing with a random guy. At first it seemed harmless, just two people dancing in a crowded club. But then, she got closer, her movements more suggestive, and before I knew it, she was leaning in as if to kiss him. My heart skipped a beat, and I couldn't believe what I was seeing. This was Sarah, who had been in a committed relationship for years, and here she was, about to kiss a stranger in a club. Luckily, one of the other girls in our group noticed what was happening and quickly stepped in. She pulled Sarah away before anything could happen, and for a moment it seemed like the situation was under control. But that relief was short-lived. Sarah, clearly not thinking straight, shrugged it off and went right back to the dance floor. And then, not long after, she did it again, this time with a different guy. I was torn. Part of me wanted to look the other way, to pretend I hadn't seen anything. But another part of me, the part that believes in honesty and loyalty, couldn't just let it slide. I thought about Mark, sitting at home, completely unaware of what was happening. If I were in his shoes, I'd want to know. I'd want someone to tell me the truth, no matter how painful it might be. So I pulled my girlfriend aside and told her what I'd seen. I expected her to be just as shocked as I was, but instead, she brushed it off. "It's none of our business," she said, her tone dismissive. I was taken aback. How could it not be our business? We were watching her best friend potentially ruin her relationship, and she didn't seem to care. I didn't want to let it go, but I also didn't want to ruin the night. It was my girlfriend's birthday, after all, and the last thing I wanted was to cause drama. So I tried to push it to the back of my mind and focus on enjoying the rest of the evening. But the image of Sarah leaning in to kiss those guys kept replaying in my head. I couldn't shake the feeling that Mark deserved to know the truth. The next morning, as I sat in my apartment nursing a mild hangover, I couldn't stop thinking about what had happened. The more I thought about it, the more convinced I became that I needed to say something. It wasn't an easy decision. I knew that by telling Mark, I could be opening a can of worms that would change everything. But I also knew that if I stayed silent, I'd be complicit in Sarah's deceit. So I grabbed my phone, found Mark's number, and sent him a message. I kept it as straightforward as possible, explaining what I'd seen and leaving it up to him to decide how to handle it. I felt a weight lift off my shoulders after sending the message, but it was quickly replaced by anxiety. Had I done the right thing? What if Mark didn't believe me? What if it caused more harm than good? A few hours later, my girlfriend came over to my place. I could tell something was off as soon as she walked in. She wasn't her usual cheerful self. There was a tension in the air that I couldn't quite place. We sat down, and after a few minutes of awkward small talk, she came out with it. "Did you message Mark this morning?" she asked, her tone accusatory. I didn't see any point in lying. "Yeah, I did," I replied, trying to gauge her reaction. He deserved to know what happened last night. Her face fell, and I could see the frustration building. "You shouldn't have done that," she said, shaking her head. "Now they've had a huge fight, and they're breaking up. Sarah is devastated, and it's all because of you." I was stunned. How could this be my fault? I wasn't the one who had flirted with random guys and tried to kiss them. I wasn't the one who had betrayed their partner. "I'm not the one who cheated," I said, trying to keep my voice calm. "Sarah only has herself to blame for what happened." "But my girlfriend wasn't having it. You should have stayed out of it," she insisted. "It wasn't your place to get involved. Now you've ruined everything." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Was she seriously more concerned about protecting her friend than about the fact that her friend had been unfaithful? "Mark deserved to know the truth," I said, trying to make her see my point of view. If it were me, I'd want someone to tell me. But no matter what I said, she wasn't convinced. In her mind, I was the bad guy, the one who had meddled in something that wasn't my business and caused a relationship to fall apart. It didn't matter that I'd only been trying to do the right thing. The rest of the conversation was tense and uncomfortable. She was clearly upset with me, and I could feel the distance growing between us. I tried to explain my reasoning, but it felt like we were speaking two different languages. In her eyes, I had overstepped, and there was no justification for what I'd done. After she left, I sat alone in my apartment, replaying the events of the past 24 hours in my head. I knew that by telling Mark, I'd done what I thought was right, but now I was left wondering if it had been worth it. My girlfriend was angry with me, Sarah's relationship was in shambles, and I felt like I was the one being blamed for everything. I couldn't help but think about how things might have played out differently. What if I'd kept quiet? Would Sarah and Mark still be together, blissfully ignorant of what had happened? Or would the truth have come out eventually, causing even more pain in the long run? There was no way to know for sure. As the days passed, the tension between me and my girlfriend didn't ease. Every time we talked, the subject seemed to come up, and it was clear that she hadn't forgiven me for what I'd done. It was frustrating. I didn't understand how she could be so angry with me for telling the truth, especially when the real issue was Sarah's behavior. I started to question our own relationship. If she was willing to overlook her friend's infidelity, what did that say about her values? And what did it mean for us as a couple? Could I be with someone who didn't see the importance of honesty and loyalty? It was a confusing and difficult time. On one hand, I believed that I'd done the right thing by telling Mark, but on the other hand, I couldn't shake the feeling that my actions had caused a rift between me and my girlfriend that might never fully heal. I found myself constantly second-guessing my decision. Had I been too impulsive? Should I have talked to my girlfriend more before reaching out to Mark? Should I have considered the potential fallout more carefully? These questions swirled around in my mind, leaving me unsure of what to think. To make matters worse, word got around our social circle about what had happened. Some people supported my decision, saying that Mark had a right to know. But others sided with my girlfriend, arguing that I should have stayed out of it and let Sarah deal with the consequences of her actions in her own way. The division among our friends only added to the strain. I started to feel like I was on trial, constantly having to defend myself and my actions. It was exhausting, and I could feel the weight of the situation bearing down on me. Through it all, I kept coming back to the same thought: if the roles were reversed, I would have wanted to know. I couldn't imagine being in a relationship with someone who was unfaithful, only to have the truth hidden from me. It didn't sit right with me to stay silent, knowing that Mark was being kept in the dark about something so significant. Eventually, I decided to take a step back and focus on my own feelings. I realized that I needed to come to terms with my decision, regardless of how others viewed it. I couldn't change what had happened, but I could control how I dealt with it moving forward. I started to see a counselor, hoping to work through the guilt, confusion, and frustration that had been building up inside me. It wasn't an easy process, but it helped me gain some clarity. I began to understand that while my actions may have had unintended consequences, they came from a place of wanting to do what was right. My relationship with my girlfriend remained rocky. The trust between us had been shaken, and I wasn't sure if we could get back to where we were before. The arguments became more frequent, and it was clear that we were struggling to see eye to eye on the issue. One night, after yet another heated discussion, I decided to lay it all out on the table. I told her how I felt, how I believed that honesty was crucial in any relationship, how I couldn't stand by and watch someone be deceived, and how I was hurt that she didn't seem to understand my perspective. She listened, but I could tell that her feelings hadn't changed. She still believed that I should have stayed out of it, that I'd overstepped and caused unnecessary pain. It was a difficult realization, but I knew that we were at an impasse. In the end, we decided to take a break. It wasn't an easy decision, but it felt like the right one. We both needed time to process everything that had happened, to figure out what we wanted and where we stood. As I reflect on the situation now, I still believe that I did what was right, even if it led to unintended consequences. It's never easy to navigate these kinds of moral dilemmas, and I've learned that sometimes doing the right thing can come with a heavy cost. But I've also learned that I need to stay true to my values, even when it's difficult. I believe in honesty, loyalty, and integrity, and I can't compromise on those principles. It's a lesson that's come with its fair share of pain, but it's one that I'll carry with me moving forward. Whether or not my relationship with my girlfriend survives this, I know that I can look back on this experience and know that I stood up for what I believed was right. And at the end of the day, that's something I can live with.